Thank you so much. I didn't want the music to end, but we're happy. We're happy to be here. Um, I just want to first say thank you to Omari for giving HBCUs this platform and an opportunity to have this conversation. So thank you, Omari. Secondly, if you attended an HBCU or you have taught in an HBCU, drop it in the chat. We want to see some HBCU love. All right, now let's move on to introductions. If all of the panelists, I don't know if everyone's pinned, but if all of the panelists can have your cameras on, and there we are. Okay, yeah, let's do a round of introductions. I'd love to just get your names, your institutional affiliations, and what you currently do. Are you a student, educator, and so forth? So since I have the floor, I'll just begin. I'm Kalina Sales, Associate Professor of Graphic Design and Chair of the Department of Art and Design at Tennessee State University in Nashville. And let's pass the mic over to Jennifer.
Oh my goodness. This is such a beautiful exchange, everybody. Thank y'all for holding space for us. I'm Jen White Johnson, formerly a professor of 11 years at Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland. My Bulldogs, I'm so honored and happy to be here. Currently, I'm taking a little break to focus on my personal practice, which is disability justice advocacy. But I'm also teaching a disability justice class at the University of Minnesota School of Design. But I still have a very strong relationship and ties to my HBCU family. And that is where I was able to really develop just who I am as a design educator. So I'm gonna be highlighting a student of mine today, and I'm just super happy to be here on this dope panel. I'm honored, thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Dwayne Edwards, you wanna go next?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me, and glad to be here and looking forward to an amazing panel. Name is Dwayne Edwards. I am the president of the newly reopened Pencil Lewis College of Business and Design in Detroit, Michigan. This is my 33rd year in the design industry, and ever since I got in, I've been trying to get more Black folks in it. So this is just the next chapter into elevating that to even greater heights than what has happened before. So looking forward to today's panel and the conversation later today as well.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Dr. Perry.
Hey everyone, I'm Perry Sweeper. I'm a professor of practice at Morehouse College in Atlanta. I'm currently in Baltimore. I'm teaching virtual. And I am a graduate of Morgan State University. So I'm just glad to be here and glad to talk with everyone.
Awesome, and we have two TSU students here. Sanaya, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sanaya Malbrough, a freshman graphic design major with a double minor in marketing and Spanish. And I'm just excited to be here to speak with you all.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, everyone. Sorry, Professor Sales. I'm Jonathan Diggs. I'm a graphic design major and I'm a junior as well at Tennessee State.
Nice.
Awesome. And Jennifer, you have a student that you're representing today as well, right?
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, due to a family emergency, he can't be here. But in full HBCU solidarity, I will be representing the Honorable Mr. Sharon Towson, who lives in Maryland, and I'm happy to, again, represent him. So, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So let's jump into the conversation. The first question is to our design educators. I'm curious, what made you decide to teach at an HBCU? Anyone can jump in.
Ladies first.
Wow. It's a beautiful question. I don't know. I feel like after grad school, I definitely felt in the program that I was in that, and I know a lot of you can relate to this story, as being the only person of color, the only Black woman, the only Black person the only Afro-Latina presence there, maybe you're sharing space with maybe like one other, student of color. And you feel, underserved, underrepresented. And so the relationships that I have formed with other professors in the past who were graduate of HBCUs, those were some of the most nourishing relationships. And keeping in touch with those professors, as you know, faculty ratios are always low. As HBCU design professors, we're always teaching a mix of a million different classes all at once. And so because I remember one specific HBCU, design professor, T.O. Melkashua, who some of you may be familiar with on this call, who is the VCDMA coordinator at Bowie State University. As soon as he found out that I graduated with my MFA, he was like, we need you to come to Bowie State and we need you to come and teach here. And because my relationship, I was one of his students, my relationship with him was so foundational. And I remember what being an HBCU design professor means. It just means that you're a family, you're a community, you're learning from someone that you often didn't see represented in your own undergraduate and graduate study, in your own design communities. And I just felt like it was a duty to go back and to be able to take my energy, my newly designed wisdom into this space where students can say, hey, like, this person looks like me, they speak my language, they want to be open and accessible, specifically uplifting the culture. I don't know, I just had a blast being able to be free in that way. Yeah. I could go on, but it's
No, that was beautiful.
I want to make time we hold space.
Anyone want to jump in on that? Why you decided to teach at an HBCU?
Yeah, I can jump in. So my journey is a bit different. I'm from Inglewood, California. So the closest HBCU to me was Prairie View in Houston. And so I was blessed with an opportunity to get into the industry at a really young age as a designer, and going through that two and a half decades of doing that, I just noticed there weren't enough people who looked like me sitting next to me. And so it was always my journey to uplift and bring in the next generation of kids that look like me throughout my whole two and a half decades. And I decided to retire from the industry completely in 2010 to open my own academy that specifically taught kids how to design footwear and apparel so they can get into this multi-billion-dollar industry, as we know, of sneakers and sneaker culture, right? And it was about 2 years ago, almost about 2 years ago, I was in contact with the Lewis College of Business family, who the college had closed in 2013 in Detroit, and they had been trying to reopen the college. And my academy has been going for the last 12 years, and we've been primarily the main resource for African-American designers in the apparel and footwear industry for the last decade. And so we ultimately merged, and we're reopening the college as one of the only HBCUs with a focus on design. We have such a rich history in design. You turn on the TV, we're supporting these brands by the things that we wear, but it's not enough of us in those organizations. And it's been my journey ever since '89, when I was number 2 in the whole industry, to make sure that, that problem that exists currently in this industry of lack of visibility, lack of talent, lack of access, all those things, we're gonna resolve in Detroit. We've been doing it in Michigan, in Portland for 12 years. Now we're gonna do it in Detroit and try to uplift the HBCU community as well.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And I know you're speaking again later, right? Today at the
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about that. Let's move on quickly to Perry. Did you want to give your response to that?
Yes, and I keep it short. I grew up near a university, and so I would hear the marching band practicing at night. And my dad he started off as a groundskeeper at Morgan State University after years as working as a plumber. And so he worked his way up. And his last job before he retired was he was the central driver. So he would drive for the president. And, that was near and dear to my heart. And so homecoming time, he would be the last one in the parade, and he would be driving the bus. And so I would see him there. And so I thought about that, and it always stuck with me. And so when I thought about teaching, I just thought, HBCU was the best place for me, where I could relate to the students and I can make the biggest impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next question is gonna be for the students, but I'll say real quick too, because my experience is similar. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. So TSU was just the neighborhood HBCU, and always had love for it. Attended TSU as an undergrad student. And so when, I thought about teaching, it just felt natural to come back here and do that. But I'm curious about our students. We have Jonathan and Sanaya, and I'm curious if you can give a really quick answer. We don't have a ton of time. I don't want to rush anyone, but we do have to be conscious of time. I'd love to know why you decided to attend an HBCU. I assume you likely had other options, right? So what made you decide on an HBCU?
I'll go first. I love this question a lot because I do get it actually a lot since I grew up in a predominantly white area since I was a child. So from literally elementary school to high school, I was around predominantly my white counterparts. So I really knew I always wanted to be a design student and always be back into art. I've always been a creative child. I've been doing dance and singing and doing art, painting, all that stuff, etc. So I know I wanted to go into the creative route of design. But looking for schools, I really wasn't sure where I felt comfortable, being an art student, but also being a young Black woman. I wasn't sure, okay, what would be the best place for me. And my sister, she's a lot older than me. She graduated last semester. Congratulations to her. But I saw she went to an HBCU. I found that out, or researched it, and I was like, okay, this is perfect for me. They're gonna have, people who look like me. I also like the majority, not the minority. That's how I felt. So researching TSU, I found out they had, my exact major in graphic design, and I'm a legacy from there. My father went there, my aunt went there, so I definitely felt very comfortable, and especially being in the design community as a young Black person or a Black woman, I just felt very secure and felt very comfortable. That's why I chose to go to HBCU. Thank you.
So similarly enough to Sanaya, I actually attended a private institution. So I grew up around people that didn't necessarily resemble me. So I had family members who attended HBCUs. My father and my mother also went to Tennessee State for a time. But I was like, what would it be like to go to somewhere where it's a lot of people that look like me and where I can actually learn about my culture and my history. And so I decided to go to an HBCU for that reason. And it's been very educational. I've been able to take classes like African-American art history and see and learn about all of these amazing African-American artists that I don't think I would have learned about in different institutions. So.
Thank you so much. You guys touched on a lot of really important points. Hopefully we get a chance to circle back around. I'm curious though, what are some of the differences between, attending an HBCU or teaching at an HBCU versus a predominantly white institution? Do we notice any distinct differences that we can sort of share with our audience?
Yeah, I can hop in. Just because there's something that we continue to hear over and over again from each of us as we've given our introductions is representation. The fact that you're in a design space that is supposed to educate you and to make you feel seen and heard, but yet it's not coming specifically from people who look like us. That was one of the things that kept reoccurring. Each of us said it where we grew up in a space where like the industry didn't have enough of us. So that means that it's up to us to help to lead that conversation and to be visible, and to show that we're leaders and that we can actually lead this conversation, lead the opportunities. And I think that is one of the distinct differences why a lot of Black people in general choose HBCU design programs, because even though some of those design programs are small and they're still growing and some are still thriving, and they don't get a lot of recognition because they're overshadowed by a lot of the PWI design design spaces and design curriculum. We need to, that's what retention is. And we need to kind of keep those programs thriving so that they can actually open up and be strong. And with Bowie, I mean, I can't brag enough about my HBCU in terms of the entrepreneurship academies. And we always, Black people, we always know what it was like to come from the bottom up to the top and to kind of build these spaces of leadership for our own people that we didn't see. Dwayne can speak on that, especially. It's like, if we don't see it, we got to make it ourselves.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Period. We have to pave the way, and we need to be able to show students that this is where I came from. I didn't come from success, or I didn't come from this space where everything was always handed to me. Right. I didn't come from a space from privilege. And so I feel like when Black folks are at the head of leading those conversations, we know what it's like. Right. When a Black student comes into our office to say, this is what I didn't have. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I do have. What I do have now for you that we can build together.
Great. Mr. Perry?
Yeah, that connection from professor to student was profound for me in my college experience. And so to be able to continue that at a HBCU, especially for young Black men, I just feel like, I had some information. I have some information, some lived experience that I can share with them, right? And so you don't always get that. Your first priority is to teach whatever's on the syllabus, curriculum, stick to it. But you often get those moments where you can touch base with a student. You can give them, pearls of wisdom that you gathered, or point them in the right direction. And they can't pay me for that, right. Because it's just an experience that's priceless.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I taught at some of the best PWI design schools in the nation, and always seeing 2 or 3 Black faces in my student body was disappointing. I think what we're doing now, though, is really letting kids know Black design history. A lot of it is still alive. Mm-hmm. We lost a few in Virgil and Andre Talley in the last few months, but a lot of our history is still alive. And for the kids to be able to understand their history and their place in the things that they buy and see is just as important as what we're going to teach them and what we've been teaching them for decades. I just don't think we understand our power enough. We don't understand our power of design. We don't understand our economic power. And the more that we can share what our economic power is, our strength in numbers, as even though their numbers are small, but they're mighty. It's all about empowering this next generation so they understand that people before them are still here to help guide them and lead them in the paths that we didn't have a chance to have someone else lead us into. And so that's what I really want to make sure that we get across, and we've been doing for the last decade or so, is just sharing everything that we have. I feel like everything I've been able to do, I've been blessed to give it all back. And that's what we're doing.
So I have a question. So, the industry sort of laments this lack of diversity, right? And and there's a significant lack of diversity within the design industry, but we have HBCUs that exist with tons of students who have interest and talent and, skills. Why is there a lack of diversity when we have, what can you attribute the lack of diversity to, since we have HBCUs, and students eager to enter the industry? Is it a pipeline problem? Is it what's the issue?
There's a lot. I don't know if we have enough time. I don't know if we have enough time for that one, but I think it is a pipeline issue. I would say from middle school to high school, no visibility to art and creativity as it pertains to what a career looks like in design. I put it on the industry, though. I think it's the industry needs to step up and do more to share what's available to us besides what there is available to buy. And so if the industry start to share more about what these design careers were, like the different design titles and what do they do, then at least it would start to plant a seed for these kids to understand, okay, how do I get there? Like, how do I do that? And then even if those companies showed those careers, if they showed a Black person doing those careers, then it's an opportunity for our youth to see people who look like them in a job they didn't even know existed. And so I do believe it's about visibility. And also for us as Black people, we also need to start looking in new places to get new results as well.
Yeah, I think there's a word there. Yeah, the one thing I'll add to that is, I think that the industry, has long focused on these sort of Eurocentric design standards, right? But at HBCUs, what I see in my students' work is very culturally specific work. So it's centering Black experiences, it's centering Black people, Black culture, imagery that's specific to Black people. And, when that's in a design portfolio, what's the reception from the industry when they're going for interviews at, for an internship or a job, right out of school. So I think the industry has to sort of rid itself of this, reliance on these Western kind of Eurocentric standards as well. And not just sort of say that they want diversity, but really look to that and how that's represented in the work that's being created from our students. So, all right, so oh, go ahead.
That quickly, I feel like students feel like they have to have two portfolios, and they have to be culturally ambidextrous in a way where, they hide the things that are near and dear to their hearts, and then they have this sort of default portfolio that they're building over here that they know will probably get them a job that will be more attractive in industries. And I feel like we just need one portfolio. We need to be able to walk into a room and have people have the just the fortitude, the openness to be able to look at our portfolios and see the design skill and creativity and all of the things they're looking for in candidates. It's there. It really is. You just got to look for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Jennifer, do you want to share? I know you had a project that your student did. Can you share that?
This is the perfect time, and I'm glad that you mentioned that the industry needs to continue to have these like bridges so that Black folk can cross the bridges and build those bridges and keep those bridges running. And design, like conferences like this are so important that allow for those industries to show up, especially like Black folk in those industries. So Tana, it's like, her name is like Tanya Artiste, who works at Target. She does a lot of brand kind of like bridge building with HBCU design programs. And so for the past, since 2020, Target has been doing a really beautiful Black Beyond Measure program with different HBCUs. And so in the past, Howard, 2021, Bowie State University was able to have a really beautiful apparel design featured in the store that one of my former students, Sharon Towson, exponentially was able to go full force with this project. And the shirt has a really cool pattern design. I'm wearing it now, so shout out to Sharon.
Yeah.
And this particular project started off with a pattern of protest project in school, and this was done through the pandemic. And the project was really rooted in, what are Black symbols, what are Black iconography that we can kind of hold space for. How can we continue having these general or generational conversations, uplifting, as I said, symbols and iconography, and putting these cultural narratives into the designs that we create today, so we can have this really beautiful connection and conversation. And when he submitted his first go round for this actual pattern, it didn't make it, but he didn't give up. The next following year, he was like, you know what, I'm gonna customize the pattern again. I'm gonna clean it up a bit. I'm gonna have more conversations with my fashion design professors at Bowie State, because he's concentrating in fashion design. And he ended up being selected as one of the finalists. So super proud. I'm gonna drop that link in the chat, and I wanted to highlight him today. And Target, they're amazing because they start a whole year in advance, as you know, apparel design. And so they give these students a lot of time and flexibility and accommodations to make sure that these designs are like really, you know, like really fluid and just really strong and solid, because they know like we need to be able to get the students of today, these students of the moment, to speak this language if we really want to continue to have, you know, solidarity, you know, with like Black culture and Black conversations. So shout out to Sharon, and shout out to Target for continuing to understand that relationship doesn't need to come from some white in-house designer who doesn't speak our language. It needs to come from our young people who are the moment, who are speaking the language that is the future, you know, that y'all are going to be running things. So shout out to shout out to the students that are on the panel today. Y'all are so beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, so we just have a couple minutes left, but what's sort of the, you know, if there's a takeaway, if there's something that you want people to know about HBCUs, what would be that thing, you know, even for our students, if someone was considering attending an HBCU, what would you tell them?
I'll jump in here. Because like I said before, I always get the question, why an HBCU? Like, why didn't you just go to somewhere, you know, and stay in Georgia? I always tell them I feel like a family whenever I'm at TSU. You can literally like walk to the caf or walk to your next class and someone will always say hi to you, even if you don't know them. And it's a safe presence. And it's like, you know, when your parents are gonna drop you off, you're gonna feel safe. Like they know someone's gonna watch over you, either a faculty member or your roommate or a friend, or someone you probably don't even know, maybe a roommate or an advisor or an RA. Like, for example, like Professor Sales is my current new mentor. So just like that, just that safety and that kind of buoyancy, like, okay, listen, I know once I'm here, I'm gonna be okay. Especially in the art design community as well. Like Ms. Jennifer was saying before, but the Target submission, I submitted mine, like I think 2 weeks ago for the upcoming one for the HBCU Design Challenge. And even with that, I just felt like, wow, it is just a once in a lifetime opportunity to show myself and show HBCUs and present them, you know, represent them as a whole, but also show that TSU does have just business majors, but also they have art majors who really are here to show them who they are, you know, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that does make sense.
For me, I was gonna say, for me personally, I feel like even though HBCUs might be trying to grow in their graphic design department, it's a blessing and a curse. So for me, I'm always worried about feeling inadequate in comparison to people that have attended a PWI. But on the flip side of that, it's forced me to take my learning outside of the classroom. So with that being said, it's like people like Professor Sales and people like Professor Jackson, another one of my close professors, has really helped me and encouraged me to grow outside of the classroom and to seek opportunities to learn the software that I need to learn as a graphic designer on my own. So going to an HBCU has really spurred learning outside of the classroom, which is going to be beneficial for me in the workforce. So I don't have to just coast off of what my professors have taught me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. And we have one last minute. So if any of our design educators want to say a last word here, you have the floor.
Yeah, Jonathan, like you hit it. It's like build those relationships and build you know what your strengths are, and do what a lot of us didn't do when we were in undergrad. Like you have so much access to Instagram, TikTok, all of these spaces where you are in control of your own content and you can build it and you can control it. A lot of us didn't really have, we were like literally like selling shirts like out of the back seat of our trunks. Like, oh, I mean, like we still do that, and it's still it's still totally like, and it's still dope to do that, especially in Baltimore, where I live now. That's still the way to go, but you have so much beauty of how you can control it. And so with Sharon, he has his own apparel space, and he has a GoFundMe now called Stranger Than Nature, where he's literally like designing, taking sewing classes, continuing to like learn about, you know, AutoCAD and learning to, you know, just understanding kind of like the nuance of like the fashion industry. But a lot of that happened with the spark, like professors like Professor Sales. And, you know, but because you already have the desire and the power that's running in your veins through your ancestors, like listen to that voice, go with that gut and keep making, keep building, because you got it, you got it.
Thank you all so much for that. And Kalina, thank you so much for moderating that panel discussion. I want to just a couple of things too that I observed. Jennifer made the comment about the students being beautiful, and there was kind of like a half smile from the students, and or something to that effect, I believe, Jennifer. And I want y'all to know that you are beautiful, and that the reason why a lot of us are doing the work that we do is because we want to make things a little easier for you or make the way. And we're just so proud of you and excited for you all. And also very excited to see the possibility of being able to go to HBCUs and pursue your career in design and the support you can get around that. So let's keep it going, always forward, right? Thank you very much, y'all.